If you are seeing this, it is the sign your life is about to change. Neville Goddard taught that no sign ever arrives from outside you, that every sign you have ever waited for was first a movement within your own imagination. And if these words have found you tonight, it is because something in you has already turned toward the life you have been secretly assuming. Now here is the premise, and I want you to hear it the way Neville read scripture, not as ancient history, but as a psychological drama happening inside you right now. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 24, it is written, "What things soever you desire, when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them." And Neville would stop you right there and say, "Do you see it?" The verse does not say believe that you will receive. It says believe that you already have received. The tense is the whole secret. Most people pray for a thing and then spend their days watching for it to arrive, checking the mailbox of the world, scanning the horizon for evidence, and in doing this very watching they prove to themselves they do not yet have it, and that proof, held daily in feeling, is what keeps the thing away. The very posture you assume to get the wish is the posture that blocks the wish. Waiting is not faith. Waiting is the confession of lack, dressed up as patience. And if you have spent years praying correctly by every outward measure, saying the right words, kneeling at the right hour, and still watched nothing move, you are not alone in this. And you were never the problem. Only the tense you were praying in was ever the problem. Say it with me. I am living now in the feeling of my wish fulfilled. I am the one who assumes the end and lets the means arrange themselves. Imagination creates my reality. Again, I am living now in the feeling of my wish fulfilled. I am the one who assumes the end and lets the means arrange themselves. Imagination creates my reality. If you would like tomorrow's teaching to find you the way this one did, stay close by subscribing, quietly, so it can reach you again. And if something in you just went still while you said those words, type the 2 words "it's done" in the comments below, and let it be your seal. The first key is this: stop waiting for the sign and become the sign. Most of us were taught to look outward for confirmation. A text message, a number on a scale, a phone call that does not come, and we call this waiting patience. But Neville taught that the sign is never out there waiting to be found. The sign is the shift in your own feeling. The moment your imagination has quietly assumed the wish is already fulfilled. That shift is the sign, and it always happens first, before any outward evidence. It is not the world that goes quiet and then you feel peace. It is you who feel peace, and then the world grows quiet to match you. Think of a woman who has been assuming a certain letter will come. She checks the mailbox every day, and every empty day deepens her sense of not having. She tells herself she is only being careful, but really she is rehearsing lack, hour by hour, with her own attention, and the mailbox, faithful mirror that it is, keeps agreeing with her. Now watch what happens the moment she stops checking, the moment she feels already the relief of that letter, as though it were read. Something in her has changed state, quietly, without a single outer thing having moved yet. And that change of state is the true sign, not the letter. It is not the world that signals you. It is you who signal the world. Think also of the man who watches his phone all evening for a message from someone he loves. Every silent minute deepens the ache, and he calls this longing. But Neville would call it rehearsal, the felt sense of absence practiced with devotion, and practiced feeling always hardens into fact. So this week, whenever you catch yourself waiting for confirmation, checking a phone, watching a doorway, ask quietly, have I already assumed the feeling of having this? If not, assume it now, right where you stand. In the kitchen, in the car, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, and let that inward assumption be the only sign you require. Stop scanning the horizon. It has nothing to give you that you have not first given yourself, and once you understand this, you will notice that every sign that ever mattered in your life was only ever the outer echo of a feeling you had already, quietly, made your own. I am the sign I have been waiting for. The second key is this. Understand that you did not stumble onto this teaching by accident. Neville taught that nothing appears in your world that is not first a reflection of some state you occupy within, and that includes the very teachings that come to you, the books that fall open to the right page, the voice that reaches you at the right hour. None of it is random, it is correspondence. Your own inner readiness calling its outer answer into view. This is a gentler way to think about coincidence. It is not luck, it is law, and law means it can be relied upon. Once you understand how it moves, consider a man who had grown quietly tired of feeling invisible at his own job. Passed over, unheard in meetings, he said nothing aloud. He simply began alone in his car each morning to feel for a few minutes what it would be like to be genuinely valued. Within days, a coworker stopped him in the hallway to say, "Your idea from last month changed how we do things now." A manager who had never used his name addressed him directly in a meeting, and that same week, an old mentor, unprompted, wrote to say, "You deserve more recognition than you get." He had told no one of his private mornings in the car, yet the outer world had already heard them. This is what Neville meant by "as within, so without." His assumption had gone out ahead of him, quietly rearranging the very people who would confirm it back to him. And notice, it was not one grand event, it was three small ones from three unrelated directions, which is exactly how correspondence tends to move. Softly, from many doors at once. Consider too a mother who had quietly assumed, for weeks, that her strained relationship with her grown daughter was already healed. She sent no message, forced no conversation. She simply sat some evenings and felt the warmth of an easy call that had not yet happened. And one ordinary Tuesday her daughter called, for no particular reason, and the conversation was lighter than it had been in years. This is correspondence, moving as it always moves, quietly, from the inside out. So when a person is quietly assuming a new identity within, the world begins arranging itself to agree, and one of its first agreements is instruction, a voice, a book, a video, that finally says the thing you have been needing to hear. It is not chance scrolling that brought these words to you tonight. It is your own readiness, moving ahead of you in the dark, ordering its own confirmation. So if this message reached you, do not treat it as luck. Treat it as evidence that you have already begun to move toward the very change you have been praying for. And let that recognition settle you, rather than excite you. Excitement fades, but a quiet, settled knowing endures, and it is this knowing that will carry you deeper as we go on together. I recognize my own readiness in everything that reaches me. The third key is this. The outer world is only ever a mirror of the inner one, and Neville taught this as plainly as he could. Everyone is you pushed out, meaning every person who troubles you or delights you, every circumstance that seems to arrive from outside, is in truth a reflection of some state living quietly within your own consciousness. This is not a comfortable teaching at first, because it removes the excuse of the outside world. There is no one to blame anymore, and there is no one to credit either but yourself. Most of us were raised to believe the opposite, that people simply are the way they are, that circumstances simply happen, that the world moves independently of us and we merely react to it. But Neville said no. The world is the visible arrangement of your own assumptions, dressed in bodies and events and dates on a calendar. So when you meet a harsh manager, you are not meeting an accident. You are meeting, in outward form, whatever harshness has been quietly assumed within. Consider an ordinary day. You wake already bracing for traffic, and traffic finds you. You walk into the office already expecting a curt reply from a colleague, and the reply comes curt. You check your accounts already anticipating disappointment, and the number disappoints. By evening you say the day was hard, but Neville would ask gently, whose day was it? At 7 you glance at the sky, already certain the day will go poorly. By 9, you walk in rehearsing the tone your colleague will use, and when she uses it, you feel almost vindicated. See, I knew it. By 3, you check the balance with your stomach tight before the number even loads, and by 6, you collapse on the couch calling the day simply hard. But not one moment of it arrived first. Every hour you were the one supplying the feeling. And the day, obedient mirror that it is, handed the feeling back to you dressed as circumstance. Now widen this further. Think of the family member who never seems to change, the friend who always disappoints at the exact moment you needed them most, the stranger who always seems short with you. And ask honestly, have I been meeting them, or have I been meeting my own settled expectation of them, wearing their face? It is not that you imagined a bad day and are somehow at fault the way a child is scolded. It is simply that you are far more powerful than you were ever told. Powerful enough that your inner attitude toward a person becomes, in time, the very treatment you receive from them. Now imagine those same hours lived from a different assumption. You wake already feeling the ease of the day. You walk in already assuming warmth from that colleague. You check the account already feeling secure. And slowly, not because of magic but because of mirror, the day begins to answer differently. The way a room warms once you have finally lit the fire in it. This is why Neville said, know what you want, then assume you already have it, and stop consulting the mirror to see if it agrees. The mirror only ever shows you back what you are already being. It cannot show you anything else, no matter how long you stand before it pleading. So this week, when a person or circumstance troubles you, pause and ask quietly, what have I been assuming here? What feeling have I been rehearsing toward this outcome? Because whatever it is you, pushed out, wearing a different face. And once you see this clearly, you stop trying to rearrange the reflection with your hands, and you finally reach instead for the one thing that was always producing it. I meet only myself, wherever I turn. The fourth key is this: you are not your state, and this single distinction can quietly undo years of feeling stuck. Neville taught that a state is like a room in a great house. You can enter grief, and grief will feel entirely true while you stand inside it. You can enter lack, and lack will seem like the whole of reality while you remain in that room. But you are not the room. You are the one who walks the halls of that house, capable of leaving any room and entering another. Most people confuse themselves with whatever state they currently occupy. They say, I am depressed, I am broke, I am unloved, as though these were their identity, when in truth these are simply rooms they are standing in, and the door out is always within reach, because imagination, not circumstance, decides which room you occupy next. It is not who you are, it is only where you have been standing. Think of a man who has lived so long in financial strain that he calls it his personality. Cautious, realistic, careful with money, when really, he has simply forgotten there is a hallway and other rooms exist. The moment he dares to step, in imagination, into the room where he already possesses what he needs, and feels the natural ease of a man for whom this is simply so, he has moved states, and the world, being mirror and not master, must eventually rearrange itself around the room he now lives in. Consider also a young woman who has entered the room of not being confident so many times, in every meeting, every mirror she passes, that she mistakes the room for her very name. She says it plainly, I have always been this way. Yet Neville would gently remind her, you did not arrive labeled. You wandered into a room once, perhaps by a careless word spoken over you as a child, and simply forgot to leave. The state is old, but you are not old. Imagination is always new, capable this very hour of standing in the room where she speaks plainly and is heard. Consider one more. A man recovering from a diagnosis who introduces himself at gatherings as the sick one, as though illness had become his surname, when instead he might simply say, quietly, in the room where I am well, this is how I stand, this is how I breathe, This is not becoming someone else. It is remembering you were never confined to begin with. Pause now and name the one room you have mistaken for your identity. And simply imagine standing in the opposite room, feeling how differently the air moves there, your shoulders sitting differently, your breath coming easier. I am not my circumstance. I am the one who moves between rooms. The fifth key is this, and it is the deepest one, so let us walk it slowly, in pieces, the way a room is entered one step at a time, rather than all at once. First, consider that Neville taught a specific technique for shifting states deliberately, rather than by accident. He called it the state akin to sleep, and he meant exactly what it sounds like, that drowsy threshold, just before true sleep takes you, when the body has gone heavy and still, but the mind has not yet surrendered its awareness. In that narrow doorway, imagination becomes unusually obedient, because the critical, arguing, doubting faculty of the daytime mind has grown quiet. The part of you that says that is impossible, the part of you that demands proof before it will believe anything, that part has gone to rest a little early, and what remains is soft and open and strangely powerful, like wax before it hardens. Whatever you press into wax in that state, the wax will hold, long after the pressing hand is gone. This is why Neville so often said, "The feeling is the secret, not merely the words you say, not the pictures you conjure with effort while your jaw is tight and your mind is racing, but the felt sense, the slow, warm, emotional conviction that the thing is already so." Second, consider how ordinary people misuse this very doorway every single night without ever knowing it exists. A woman lies down after a long day and replays an argument from the afternoon, feeling the injury of it all over again, sharpening the words she wishes she had said, rehearsing her retort until it gleams, and she drifts into sleep, still standing inside that scene, having unknowingly pressed it, wax soft and receiving, into the very substance of her being. And is she surprised when the following day brings her more friction, a different voice, but the same tone, a different face, but the same sting? She has used the state akin to sleep against herself, not because the law failed her, but because no one ever told her the door swings both ways. Whatever you feel most vividly in that drowsy hush, the door will carry inward. Whether it is dread or whether it is peace, the door itself does not judge, it only obeys. And this is why so many good, sincere, hard-working people find their lives circling the same disappointments year after year, not because they are unlucky, but because their most vivid nightly hour has been spent, unknowingly, consecrating the very thing they most wish to leave behind. Third, consider now how the very same doorway can be used with full intention instead of by accident. Picture a man the night before a difficult meeting he has been dreading for a week. All day his stomach has been tight. All day he has rehearsed the meeting going badly. But tonight, lying down, he chooses differently. He does not force himself to think positive thoughts about the meeting. Forcing rarely works. Instead, he selects one small, natural, touchable scene. Perhaps a colleague pausing afterward to say that went well, said plainly, without drama, and he enters that scene from inside his own eyes, not watching himself from a distance like a film, but standing inside his own body, hearing those words spoken to him, feeling the loosening in his own chest that relief brings, feeling his own shoulders drop the way shoulders drop when a worry has finally passed, and he stays there, gently, without straining toward it, the way you might rest a hand lightly on a sleeping child rather than gripping, and sleep takes him from inside that felt scene rather than from inside the dreaded one. This is not fantasy, and Neville was careful, always, about this distinction. Fantasy has no feeling of reality beneath it. Fantasy is thin and knows itself to be thin even as you imagine it. But this exercise, done rightly, done from within rather than watched from without, carries the full quiet conviction that this has already happened, somewhere, and is simply arriving. Consider also a mother lying awake worried about a son who has drifted from the family. Instead of rehearsing the silence between them, she might choose one small scene, his voice on the phone, warmer than it has been in months, saying simply, "I have been meaning to call you," and she stays there, feeling the specific relief of hearing that particular voice again, not gripping it, not straining after it, simply resting in it the way you rest into a chair that already knows the shape of you. Fourth, consider persistence, because one night of this exercise will feel pleasant, even moving, but pleasant is not the same as effective. It is the nightly return that presses the impression deep, the patient, unhurried repetition, night after night, entering the same small scene, feeling the same fulfilled feeling, the same relief, the same warmth, until the scene no longer feels like something you are imagining and begins to feel like something you are simply remembering. This is the shift Neville pointed to again and again, when a wish stops feeling like a hope and starts feeling like a fact quietly settled. This is what he meant by living in the end, not visiting the end once in a single dramatic evening and then abandoning it, but dwelling there night after night, the way you might return to the same chair by the same window every evening until the chair itself begins to hold the shape of you, until living there is no longer an exercise at all. It is simply where you live. And this is why some people practice for one night and feel nothing change, and grow discouraged, and say the teaching did not work for them, when really they simply left the room too soon, before the impression had time to set. The wax must be pressed more than once to hold a shape that lasts. So tonight, before sleep takes you, pause for a moment and pick one real wish, something modest enough that you can picture it clearly without straining, and choose the one small scene, the handshake, the letter opened, the voice on the phone, that would prove it already true. Hold that scene now, gently. Feel it fully from inside your own body, and let it be the last thing your mind touches before the dark takes you. And then return to it again tomorrow night, and the night after, patiently, the way water returns to the same stone until the stone itself has changed shape. The sixth key is this, and it is the gentlest one to close with. Neville taught that the past is not fixed, that you may revise it, and in revising it, you are not merely comforting yourself, you are altering the very state from which your future is being generated. Most people carry their day into the night unrevised, replaying the sharp word, the missed opportunity, the disappointing outcome, exactly as it happened. And by carrying it unrevised, they plant it whole and unedited into tomorrow's soil. Think of a man who comes home still stinging from a manager's cold remark. He lies down still holding the scene exactly as it occurred, and because he has rehearsed it faithfully, his imagination accepts it as the truth of who he is. And tomorrow, without knowing why, he meets another cold remark from someone else entirely because he did not revise the scene, he consecrated it. But that same man, before sleep, might return to that exact moment and simply live it again, differently, hearing the manager's voice grown warm, feeling the respect he wanted to feel. This is not deception, because the outer event cannot be undone, but the inner impression of it. The only impression that matters to imagination can be remade completely. Consider too a woman who waited all afternoon for a phone call that never came. She felt the silence as rejection, and carried it to bed unrevised, but she might instead hear the phone ring after all, hear the warm apology, and feel that relief move through her chest as though it had truly happened. This is not childish pretending. It is the deliberate use of the very faculty that has been shaping her life without her permission. And revision is not only for the sting of a single day, even the wounds of years ago. A harsh word from a parent, a door that closed too soon, can be revisited now and lived through differently. Not to deny that they happened, but to lift their grip on the state you carry forward. Consider a grown man who still winces at a father who never once said he was proud of him, who gently revisits that old scene, and hears, finally, in his father's own voice, the words he never received, not to rewrite history for the world, but to release its grip on his worth even now. A canceled meeting can be revised into welcome news, a harsh word into warmth, a missed chance into an opening still coming, an old wound into a scene that no longer commands the present, and each revised scene, held gently until sleep takes you, becomes the seed instead of the wound. So let tonight be the last night you carry an unrevised day into your rest. And let this key be the one you return to always, no matter what the day showed you. No matter how old the ache, I revise my day and rest in the version I choose. Here is the whole picture. It is not the world that signals you, it is you who signal the world. It is not chance that brought you this teaching. It is your own readiness, calling its answer into view. It is not other people who trouble or delight you. It is yourself, met again in a different face. It is not your circumstance that defines you. It is the room you have forgotten you are free to leave. It is not fantasy to feel the wish fulfilled before sleep. It is the doorway through which every true change has ever entered. And it is not the past that must repeat itself tonight. It is only the past you neglect to revise. 6 keys, and yet only ever one key, turned 6 different ways, the same single truth catching the light from a different angle each time. That imagination, felt as true, is the only power shaping your life. If what you have heard tonight has stirred something you would like to build daily, rather than visit occasionally, the 21-day reality shift was made for exactly this. 21 guided evenings, each one walking you gently into the state akin to sleep, each one training you to live in the end until it becomes simply where you live. It is available now for a gentle investment of $33, fully guaranteed. If it does not meet you where you are, simply ask and receive your money back. The link is in the description below this video, waiting for you the way every true sign waits. Quietly, until you are ready to notice it. I am living now in the feeling of my wish fulfilled. I am the one who assumes the end and lets the means arrange themselves. Imagination creates my reality. And if you are seeing this, truly seeing it, let it be exactly what it is, the sign, quiet and certain, that your life is already changing.